For those who just joined the program, we're discussing healthcare this evening. My guest is Clayton Samsudin, and if you'd like to email me, my email address is info@anchorcapital.co.za. I'm going to move on to our emails. We've got some real interesting one this evening. Susan in Fishhook says, please explain what happens when you go through both your savings and your self-payment gap, and my classic comprehensive policy discovery is now limited to $35,000. Does this limit include all out-of-hospital benefits, including glasses, hearing aids, mammograms, everything one needs?
Yeah, so that answer, so it was a question and answer in one. That's kind of, I would say, almost correct. I'm going to explain it perhaps a bit differently. Let's just say you have a benefit of 20,000 Rand for spectacles, and that is called a sublimit. If you had claimed 10,000 Rand from your medical savings account, and you're now in your above threshold, so you now get to that point where you have the 35,000 Rand limit, you're only allowed 10,000 Rand from your above threshold limit if you have a benefit in your above threshold. So you could have claimed, let's just say, out of the 35,000 for other benefits like a hearing aid, like dental, etc., and depleted the 35,000 Rand. It would mean that even though the scheme says you have this benefit that's shared between your medical savings and your above threshold, you won't have a benefit when you get to the above threshold simply because you've depleted the 35,000.
So people need to realize, we spoke about co-payments.
Yeah.
Now this is a lot more than co-payment. This is about picking up the entire cost themselves.
Correct, yeah. So what you're starting to see now is that whether we're talking in hospital or out of hospital, medical schemes simply do not cover you in full either way. And I think that's a very important realization, which means that if you wanted to get to a point where you have, let's say, full cover for in and out of hospital, there's a completely different approach to that. And I think that's what needs to happen within private healthcare, I think, going forward. Because you cannot be purchasing something that just takes you halfway through. Let's say your medical savings is depleted in May. You're still paying a premium, but then what happens to the rest of the year? You've got no benefits. That wouldn't make anyone happy. So there has to be other solutions in place, and not just like we try to, couple gap cover with the medical aid.
That's where you come in. I don't envy you. I really don't envy you, because the cost of treatment today is enormous. Lorraine in Witbank says, I've had breast cancer, and every year before visiting my oncologist, they want a mammogram, ultrasound and bloods. Does this come out of my savings? Because Discovery will only pay for a mammogram every 2 years. Surely it's in their interest to make sure that I keep myself well checked.
Yeah, so what we're talking about here is two totally different sets of benefits. The one benefit that the email is referring to is under the preventative and screening benefit. But then there's the oncology benefit. So if the oncologist had part of the treatment plan specified these blood tests, these particular mammograms, and et cetera, as part of the treatment plan, it will be covered under the oncology benefit. Now, I understand where this is coming from, because we get this happens often where the ICD-10 code is incorrect. So the member goes for a mammogram and they use the preventative and screening ICD-10 code, and it rejects. So what has to happen is they have to use the ICD-10 code as per the oncologist, and that would fix the problem. So we have a client where this occurs every month when it comes to blood tests, and every month we do the same change, and every month it then reverses from the medical savings account and is paid from the risk benefit. And this is a monthly thing we do.
So does oncology benefit continue in perpetuity?
As long as it's on the treatment plan and approved.
If you've had anything to do and you've been to an oncologist, then anything that the oncologist calls for during the years of checkup, because so many people today, I'm still being checked up 37 years later.
Yeah.
But so many people, so it's just about the code.
It's about the code and about the oncologist treatment plan. So upon diagnosis, the oncologist will present a treatment plan to the scheme, and the scheme will approve, let's say the scheme approves the entire treatment plan. All benefits claims related to that treatment plan will come from the oncology benefit.
In the years to come.
That's correct, and that's the important thing to understand.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure many of our listeners, unfortunately, with prostate cancer and breast cancer, ongoing checkups is absolutely essential that you keep yourself checked up. Serena in Kempton Park says, is there anything we as employers can do to help stretch their medical aid benefits? I mean, what can an employer do? Because obviously, if someone has got a lower medical aid and they're not getting the right treatment, it's detrimental to your employment because you're missing work and that type of thing. So this is a very sensible question. What do you tell employers to do to help their employees?
So we're moving to a point now where we started bundling a medical scheme and gap cover. And we said that, and you understand how that works, we discussed it several times. The one thing we haven't discussed is what happens in a day-to-day scenario, and I think that's the question coming from the employer. So if we bought this medical aid and my employee is now off ill for 2 weeks and can't get access to healthcare simply because there isn't a medical savings benefit or it's depleted, now what? That's the problem. So whether it's an individual or an employer, we now have to get to a point where we sensibly bundle a medical aid together with a gap cover, together with the primary healthcare product. And you can do this. So that means to get to a point of full cover, you're using 3 products to achieve that. So eventually, we've got many employer groups that are participating in the solution because in an insured primary healthcare setup, the day-to-day benefits are unlimited. It's not coming from a savings account. There's no above threshold. It's insured. It means you've got unlimited visits to a GP, prescribed meds, and so on. And it includes a whole host of other day-to-day benefits and in an insured environment, like we understood it before medical savings came to be. So if you have that product coupled with the medical aid and the gap cover, it means whether I'm in hospital or out of hospital, I would have about a 99% full cover. And if you understand, because I don't think the market and people, and there's enough kind of education around this, because an employer group can purchase a gap cover at probably 50 to 67 to 60% discount in rates. So that means that's going to be subsidized massively if an employer does that. The same applies with primary healthcare. You can reduce the primary healthcare rate from retail to group from anything up to 30%. So when you start to bundle the products correctly, you start to find this is the ultimate solution. And members, individuals, employees start to realize, wait a minute, for hospital I go to my medical aid and my gap, and for day-to-day I use my primary health care, and that I think is the better way to move forward to ensure there's no gaps.
Like, that was a great question. Do most employers know that? Or they just provide a medical aid? I mean, not realizing the consequences of those people who unfortunately aren't well.
Yeah, I think so most employers, I believe, don't know that. It's very popular in our book, including our individuals. And you of course get to a point where you need to have, I would say, a well-equipped advisor that can help, because now you're claiming from multiple places. So I could, as an example, for, let's say, a casualty ward treatment for illness, I could claim possibly from the medical aid, I can claim from the gap cover, and I can claim from primary health care. But because I've got 3 points of claiming, it means someone has to help with that claiming, the administration of that. But that's not the issue here. What you want is to land up in a point where the member, whether an individual or employee, is not out of pocket. That's the key, that's the goal that we want to achieve.
Well, I think that's critical. And my producer, if you're able to put Clayton's details, or if anyone wants to have a discussion with Clayton, they can certainly meet with him and talk to him to get a better feel for that. Lyndon Northwell says, please explain PMBs. Every time I claim, which seems to be for normal out-of-hospital benefits, I'm told it's not covered.
So prescribed minimum benefits, that's what a PMB is. And the PMB covers your 27 chronic conditions and about 271 treatment pairs. The best way to understand a PMB is if it is life-threatening or the potential loss of a limb, then it's covered under PMB. So an example could be, again, just simple examples that may help the viewers, is let's say I have a mental health problem. But if this mental health problem is left untreated, I could land up taking my life. So that's life-threatening. Because of that, consulting with a psychologist or psychiatrist is deemed a PMB benefit. If so classified, the member will have the benefit. So again, it's about talking to a healthcare advisor to help you and navigate through instances like that.
Karam says, when do my children have to come off my medical aid, and do they go on to their own medical aid?
So that depends on the medical scheme.
Yeah.
So
there's not one rule.
No. So, well, the most popular, if we go to the top schemes in the country, Discovery is the only one that charges adult dependent rates when the child reaches 21, whether the child is studying or not. Everyone else in the market, they would charge minor dependent rates as long as the child is on full-time study up to age either 25 or 27. So again, that's the rule. But we understand that, in the case where members are going to be charged the adult dependent rate, it's in that family's interest to purchase a healthcare plan that meets the needs of, let's say, the 21-year-old. Because invariably the parents would be on a more comprehensive plan that the dependent don't require. But there's also the other way that the adults are benefiting from the medical savings and above threshold benefits from the person turning 21 because they're a low claimer. So you've got to look at all of those things before making a decision.
Clayton, I'm going to forfeit my clothing this evening simply because I think this next email is critical. From David in Randburg. He says, does gap cover and a hospital plan replace a medical aid fully?
Together, I would say yes. As a standalone, meaning medical aid only, without the gap cover, you will not have full cover for major medical cover in hospital.
And a hospital plan and gap does not replace medical aid?
So a hospital plan, meaning a medical scheme hospital plan, and gap cover, yes, would rather provide you more comprehensive cover than having a medical aid only.
Well, we've come to the end of our program. I mean, it's such a big subject. I hope that, if you do, certainly if you're an employer and you're looking for certain advice regarding what Clayton said, I'm sure that you can pick up Clayton's name. We'd like to thank you for watching, Clayton. Thank you for joining me this evening.
My pleasure.
It's important to note that our program tonight is to provide information and should not be construed as advice. Next week's program, we'll be dealing once again, and I'm just going to get my reminder, we'll be dealing with investments, and if you need to get hold of me, you can email me. My details will appear on the screen. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and good night.